Hey guys, in this tutorial we are going to see how um, UI or user interface HTML can be served via Spring. So we are going to look at serving like a basic HTML, and then we are going to look into Thymeleaf. Uh, Now basic HTML is, basically Spring is just able to read up an HTML file and send it as it is. And so uh, it is hard to create dynamic content uh, or create like a dynamically generated HTML. And Thymeleaf basically solves all those issues. Thymeleaf also helps in templatization, etc. So we'll learn all of that. Um, so in order to do this, all right, first of all, if you see here, I've created a class called UI controller, and here we just have the add controller annotation. All right. I'm going to copy paste some code because all of this requires some knowledge, etc. So if you look at your API controller, right, you had all these request mappings, etc. And basically this was converting JSON uh, back and forth into objects received by the method or objects returned by the method. So similar to that, you just have your at request mapping over here, and let's say I give at I give a path called, let's say, slash UI slash let's say home. All right. And I say I'll just return home.html. So Spring will say, hey, this is a controller and you are returning home.html, but it does not know where to find home.html from. So, and basically read it and serve it. So you need to do two things. So you create your source main, and inside main, you create a web app folder. Remember from our Tomcat tutorial that you can have web app folder. Inside that you can create an HTML folder, and you can have your home.html. Okay, I'll just call it home HTML. All right, now so we have told Spring to read home.html. We have kept home.html in the web app folder. In fact, if you see the out output, the build output over here, now inside your well, it should have been, wait 1 second, I'll just stop this and I'll do maven clean install once. Okay, so now let's look at our, right, this is our web app folder. Inside webinf classes we have all our compiled classes. Inside lib we have all the maven dependencies, but now the HTML has come over here, right? So now we just need to tell Spring to interpret that, hey, whenever I give you an HTML file, you have to read it from this folder and serve it back. And so this requires a little bit of dancing around. Remember, we had our REST config that configured our Swagger. I'll just call it, let's say, controller config, because ultimately we are configuring what to do with the controller. So for example, here we are saying, hey, create a Swagger user interface for this. Here we are saying, hey, Swagger has its own resources, so it's UI, HTML, etc. Serve it from the class path. So we need to first add this line over here. All right. So why we need to do this, again, it's just a matter of research. Uh, but essentially we are telling Spring that, hey, uh, if you can't handle anything that matches your controller paths, right? Which is, let's say, like a path to home.html. Okay, then basically provide a servlet handler configure and use that to handle that path. So all of this is like little Spring gibberish. You can ignore it for the time being. And then I'm saying something called a view resolver in Spring. And so I'm saying that, hey, if you if if basically what I'm saying is, hey, here is a view file. Okay, but where to read that file from? You have to read it from /html slash, right? So basically anytime Spring gets a file name like that, this, it attaches a prefix /html, and hence Spring is able to read from /html slash whatever the file name is. Okay, so these are the two things that you need to do. I'll just give you a demo quickly. Now if I go over here and I do /UI/home, right? Oh, it's not running. All right, so I get my home HTML over here. So essentially what is happening, I'm giving a path. This path is defined by this request mapping, and in response to this path's invocation, I'm returning a file name. And then here I'm saying that if Spring, I'm telling Spring, by providing this view resolver, I'm telling Spring that, hey, whenever you receive a file name, you set a prefix to /html. Okay, and then try to read from there. And since now this path /html/home.html doesn't match any of my controller paths, right? It doesn't match any of my controller paths. Then I'm telling Spring that for all of such paths, use this handler, and this handler will then try to read from the web app and serve that HTML, right? It's a little bit of dancing around here and there. And again, this is one of the sort of key drawbacks of Spring, that understanding what beans to configure, etc., kind of becomes a nightmare. But again, this is all just like setup. Once it's all set up, you would probably never ever visit these classes ever, right? So this is how my HTML is getting constructed. Now, let's also add, let's say, some index.html. And if you remember our employee application, maybe there could be a report.html. All right. Um, Now, uh, let us say I want to add mm, uh, bootstrap to this. All right, so we'll just go at our employee app, and from here I will copy um, all of this stuff. I think my index.html had, no, this is not the right project, sorry. So I go to employee rest, source, main, web app. Yeah, all right, so let's copy all of this stuff. All right, and um, okay, let's just remove all of this stuff. Okay, we'll just remove all of this stuff. We'll put these things over here, and I've created a static folder just to move all my static files over here, my HTML files over here, and so on and so forth. All right, and uh, we had index.html, which was using jQuery and app.js. So now since it's in static, so maybe I can just do static slash app.js, and we are not using this CSS for the time being. All right, so this is my index.html. I would just like to call it uh, home.html. Typically index.html is used for a landing page, and home.html is generally used once you have logged in. So let's also have a file called index.html, and here um, let's put some bootstrap stuff. Bootstrap. Okay, let's see. I want something like this in my index.html, so that's called a jumbotron. Documentation. So jumbotron. All right. Cool. So let's just copy all of this stuff, right? And we can just put this over here from our home. We need everything up till body. All right. Then we can have slash body slash HTML, and we probably don't need jQuery, and our bootstrap is already there. Cool. We'll not worry about the rest of the things for now. We'll change it later. And in our UI controller, uh, we can do something like for no path. Okay, call this home. Just return index.html, and in our index.html, our href can become dot slash UI slash home, right? And we can say get started. All right, let us see if all of this works. Okay, so we'll just go to slash employee. All right, so my jumbotron has come. Okay, so this is the path, index.html getting served, and here if you see on the left bottom, the path is slash employee slash ISO home. So if I click here, I go into my employee application. Now if I just reload this, you're going to see that app.js and logo.jpg is not getting served, right? So we'll just copy our logo JPEG into our static, and app.js is not coming. Why? Because in our controller config, so if you look at the path over here, right, it's trying to read from UI static, but Spring doesn't know what UI static means. All right, so we are going to add a resource handler I'm saying that if you receive anything regarding slash static, so serve it from the slash static folder, right, which is this. um, let us see if this works. Not yet. So headers app.js. Okay, let me see if this works by ambient clean install. If not, then I'll pause and try to debug and get back to you. All right, and b1 jetty colon run. And also in our home, right, we need dot slash static slash logo dot jpg, and here let's say dot slash static slash shape dot js. This should work. Well, in theory, well, it's still not getting served. So let me debug this and get back to you. Okay guys, so the bug is that we had used dot slash static, right? Now if you see what is happening, that this is the page. Let me just stop this, and I'll just run maven jetty colon run. Well, I have to save and run again. This is do with relative paths of the anchors, HTML anchors. So if I do this, if you see here, that this logo.jpg is constructed as employee slash UI slash static, right? So when you give, I mean, basically it's constructing the path relative to this path as a sibling, right? And what we want is dot dot, right? Because static is at a static is at a higher level, right? So I need to have dot dot slash static and then dot dot slash static over here. And again, this is one of the things where Thymeleaf comes very handy. We don't need to worry about relative paths, etc. in Thymeleaf. But anyway, if I now uh, just run with dot dot slash static, right? So now if I load this, my image comes. This JavaScript is happening uh, because uh, because uh, because I mean, like, there are no relevant APIs to fetch from, right? So my app.js came, and that error was happening because I was trying to call some API, which doesn't exist. So well, so this is your page. Now let's try features and pricing, right? So let's just have slash UI slash features, and I can have features.html, and I can have pricing, right? All right, and what do we get over here, right? So if I just reload this, and I can go to features, which is like a dummy page, and I can go to pricing, which is like a dummy page. So now let's try to make features and pricing look a little bit like this, and essentially for that, what do I need to do? I need to, I'll just copy this entire thing, go to my features, paste over here, and let's say I don't need my app, don't need my jQuery. um, uh, we can just remove this entire div row. I need my I don't need any form. All right, I can just say it's a features page. All right, and let's just copy this entire thing into pricing, and I can just say pricing page. But immediately you start now looking into issues, right? Now this entire header part I need to copy into all my pages, and which is really bad, because what if I wanted to change my logo or add a menu item? And this is where again Thymeleaf comes into picture. It provides a feature called tiling, or uh, fragments basically, right? Where I can just reuse code snippets into all my HTML pages, and I just need to make changes to one place in the code snippet and it gets reflected everywhere. But anyway, for what it's worth, let's just run this, and let's start from the beginning. So I'm in my employee, I get started, I go to my features, it's working, right? I get my features page, I get my pricing page, and my navbar is intact at the cost of repeating my code. So we have seen two problems so far. One is that I have to repeat my header slash common code across HTML files. B, um, we had to use like dot dot slash static, and so if you have like deeply nested pages, then you will need to do dot dot slash dot dot, right, and etc., and this becomes a nightmare. And see, we haven't seen any example of dynamic HTML generation. And Thymeleaf solves some of these problems. So excuse me, how do we enable Thymeleaf now? um Again, forgive me for this, but this is again one of those things where Spring is a bit weird, right? So we have our REST app config, and I need to do all of these bunch of things to enable Thymeleaf. All right, so before we move there, in our pom.xml, we should have Thymeleaf as a dependency, which we don't have. All right, so let me pick up one of my other projects. Uh, let's look at Thymeleaf. All right, so I need Thymeleaf and Thymeleaf Spring 4 dependencies. I'll just put them over here. And what is my Thymeleaf version? To my Thymeleaf version is 309 release. Alright, so I've added a library. Just like everything else, we need to keep adding, like, so for libraries, so for Spring we added Spring library, for Thymeleaf we added Thymeleaf library, and now so these are REST app config, and this Thymeleaf config is for my other Java project, so don't confuse. Okay, I'll just save this. Now we need to do application context aware. Again, don't ask how I learned all of this. We just need to, like, I mean, this is like days and days of debugging online, because some of Spring's documentation, like setting up all of these things, is like really bad. And I don't know why this is required, but I'll just copy paste uh, these things over here. All right, so that's point number one, to enable Thymeleaf. uh, we have already done this part. or heavy. Oh, I think oh, sorry, I copied this in the wrong place. Sorry. So I'll go over here, controller config, correct. And again, I need these two methods. So I'll put them over here. We have to tell Spring where to look static resources from. So we have already added it over here. Now, remember we had a view resolver. Now, instead of this view resolver, which is provided by Spring, we will provide a Thymeleaf view resolver. And this needs a template engine because Thymeleaf has dynamic HTML generation, which is also called templating. So you have a template and you just fill in some values and you are done. And so now we need to provide this a template engine, which comes from this method over here, right? So there's a Spring template engine which comes from Thymeleaf library, uh, and then this needs a template resolver. All right, uh, and I'll just copy this part over here, and I think we are done. And we are saying, hey, anything you can just get it from your HTML folder. So a little bit of mumbo jumbo again over here. Essentially, we are creating a new view resolver which needs a template engine. Template engine is something that will pick up a template and plug in values into it. So Thymeleaf treats each HTML page as a template, something which can have values to be filled in. And then template resolver is telling where to read a template name from. So I think that's basically it. All right. So I'll just restart it and see if my current pages work fine. Again, all of this code you can find checked in into Employee Spring. And I won't be checking in the code for just serving raw HTML pages because we are losing the power of Thymeleaf. So you'll just see Thymeleaf related code when it's checked in. All right, cool. So let us see if this works. Well, it does. My hello world works. My UIs, well, we can just go from here. Um, my hello world works. My getting started page works. My feature page works. Pricing page works. So Timely is working fine, except that we have not given it anything interesting. Now let's see. Let's look at problem number one, that we had to use dot dot. So now we can just leave all of this. Let's go to our home.html. So we have to use dot dot. Now I will have to search for this. So Thymeleaf th:/src. All right, let's just search for it. Standard URL syntax, right? So you have context relative URLs. Okay. So the great thing about Thymeleaf is that whatever things you want Thymeleaf to modify, you just do th::, right? So I want the image source to be modified by Thymeleaf, and I just put th over here. And now I just need to do something like @static/logo.jpg. And so Thymeleaf will automatically convert this entire thing to a context relative URL, which is slash employee slash static slash logo dot jpg. And so just to test this, let's also test this on our app.js. All right. um, and let's copy this thing to excuse me, our pricing page, and let's copy this to our do we need this UI training? No, we don't need this anymore. I'll just delete this. And let's copy this to our features page as well. All right, and let's run and see if Thymeleaf works fine. Cool, moment of truth. All right, so if I do view page source, now just see Thymeleaf has replaced, because first of all it had a th colon source, right? So Thymeleaf reads this entire page and interprets the HTML and says, hey, wait a sec, you had written th colon source over here instead of src. So I need to interject as Thymeleaf, and then it looks at this sort of a special character sequence uh, embedded between at the rate curly braces open curly braces close, and says okay, so I should replace this by src employee static logo.jpg, right, which is like a context relative path. Okay, slash employee is the context and everything works just fine. And so no more dot dots required, no more confusion anywhere. All right, so everything works just fine. All right, so if you look at this page source, you'll see that it's again employee static, and well, this didn't work because I had to have th colon over here, right? Okay, so basically no funky stuff like dot dot etc, and it makes life super easy for UI developers. Now, so we have attacked this problem. Okay, now repeat my header. This is going to be little complex, and so what you can do is create a file called fragments.html. All right, so where you can define little code snippets. So again, I'm going to have a look at my like refer to my other product source. All right, so what do we need? So what you can do in Thymeleaf is like create any tag and just have th fragment, right? So this gives the name to that tag, right? So what do we want? So if we look at our home.html, right, it's largely this head part and nav part which is causing issues to us, correct? So in our fragments, let's just copy this head part. Typically your head part will not change. Okay, so I'm a head and I need to give this a name. All right, so I'll call fragment colon name head. All right, so whenever Thymeleaf will read this file, it'll say, hey, wait a sec, I don't need to do anything with this. There is a snippet with the name, or fragment with the name head. Then my nav is repeated. So again here I can say there is a nav element and its name is, and I can just say th fragment name as navbar. All right, so far so good. Now instead of using my head and all of these things, all right, I need to tell Thymeleaf to insert these fragments from this file. You can call it anything. You can call it fragments, you can call it snippets.html or whatever. Let's just call it snippets.html. Otherwise, you would think that the name fragments has something to do with it. So let's just call it snippets.html. All right. So, oh, did I change this at the wrong place? Yes, I did. Sorry, folks. I need to call this one as snippets.html. Alright, so my snippets are here and I need to embed those snippets over here. So we can just search for, alright, so fragment alright, so Thymeleaf fragment. Alright, so page layouts and insert. Alright, and there's insert and replace, so I think we should be using replace. Alright. Let me just refer to my main source code. So yes, that's it. Alright, so we are using head and we can just use nav and /nav. Right, so let's see what's happening over here. Okay, so I'm telling Thymeleaf over here, just remember, right, what we had, head. I'm saying instead of this head, I'm giving it a head tag and I'm telling Thymeleaf, whenever Thymeleaf sees th colon, it gets activated over this template, right? It's treating this entire file as a template. I'm saying that replace this entire thing from a file in HTML snippets.html, and within that, all right, use the fragment called name head. All right, and similarly replace my nav. Basically, it does not matter what you write, head or nav over here, whatever it is, right? Replace this with, let's say, name navbar, right? That's the name of the snippet or fragment we had given over here. Understood? So I'm telling Thymeleaf that, hey, when you are parsing this template, replace this tag with the contents from the file html/snippets.html, and within that pick up the contents of the name head fragment, and here pick up the contents of the name navbar fragment. Okay, let's see if this works, and just to ensure that it works, let's just add another nav item called dummy.html, just to know that this has been picked up from my snippets. All right, fingers crossed. Hope it works. Hope it does not explode on our faces. All right, I'll close all of these things. All right. Okay, so it is saying a slash html slash html. Um, do. Is it because we just need snippets.html over here? I think since it sees .html, it's automatically appending slash html because of our controller config, right? So maybe we had it 2 times. Let's try once again, and voila, it works, but something has gone wrong because uh, because I'm not saying our rest of the body. So what happened to the rest of the body? Uh, oh, I needed to have right slash nav over here. All right. There you go. All right. Now I can just reuse this everywhere, right? So I'll just copy this. Let me show you the power of Thymeleaf. I can go to my features. I don't need all of this. I just have this part. All right. And in my pricing, um, again, I can just have this part, correct? Yeah, and just see how easy it is, right? It tremendously reduces the code. And why don't we do just one more thing? Let's in our snippets now have a div which is class as row, and I can just call it name footer. All right, and I can just have div, and I can say copyright incref 2019. All right, and now let's say I want my footer everywhere, so I can just say inside our container I can just say replace this div, all right, with name footer and slash div. Cool. And now I want this footer everywhere. I want this on this page, I want this in the home page. All right. Okay. All right. And yeah, and let us say I also want my both my JavaScripts available in all the pages. So I just go here and I can just copy my JavaScripts into this, and let's see the magic. right? So all my JavaScripts and all my footers should be available in on the pages. Okay, so this guy works. I have my footer available over here. Let's go to pricing. Again, I have my footer available over here, although it's not like in the exact bottom location. If you look over here, exactly everything has come as we wanted. So my footer is within the container, my navbar has come, my bootstrap has come, uh, and all I need to do was write just this much code. I don't need to copy paste. And if I just change in my snippet, let's say I just want to remove my dummy, right now if you look here, I'm getting this dummy URL. I don't like it, correct? So just run. All right, um, and if I just load this, you see that my dummy link has gone from all the pages. Got it? And again, I'm having slash UI features.html. So again, I don't want it, right? Because right now like this HTML page is directly going to Thymeleaf. But I don't want that, right? So I want to have context aware paths, which are then served by my UI controller. All right, my UI controller. So features pricing, right? And so I can just have over here um, at the rate, all right, um, slash UI slash features, and then I can have slash UI slash pricing, all right, and I need th colon, correct? And um, here for my logo, right, it's pointing to the wrong place. I want to have th colon href and slash UI slash home. All right, so that's what I want everywhere. All right, and so that's what we will get, hopefully. All right, so let's go to employee, getting started. Now if you look over here, it's always pointing to this file. This is referring to UI features. So now instead of request going directly to the HTML page, if you see over here slash features, it's coming over here, and my UI controller is telling the HTML page that needs to be served, which then gets picked up by Thymeleaf, and it applies all the templatization, layouts, fragments, whatever you want to call it, URL replacement, in right. So everything comes up nicely, right? And I just needed to change, right? See, all these URLs are now nicely constructed, and I just needed to change at one place, which is my features. And so this is it. And excuse me, now let us say I want to display, right? I want to create a dynamically generated uh, page, right? So far it's still like sort of static, and let us say I want to display uh, let us say I want to display the time at which this page was created. Okay, and so I'll myself need to do a little bit of reading about it. And so the way to do that is go, markup selectors, expressions. There are like all sorts of things you can do. Right. So you have this dollar message, right? Bear with me, guys, for a second. Here, I want to understand this a little bit. References, time off, creating a layout. All right, task.id. Okay, let's go up ahead. Introduction, page layouts. Okay, so what we are going to do is we can pass an object to the template using something called model and view classes or class of Spring. And so the way to do this is, now instead of returning home.html or features.html, we can have a method that constructs the model and view for this. So model and view, okay. So static MAV and string page, all right. And we can have model and view MAV equal to new model and view page, and we can return MAV, and we can just everywhere else we can just do return this object, okay. Right, and so let me just correct these methods. And if you look at this um, class, this is again a Spring provided class. Now we need to attach an object to this, which can be used to create a dynamically generated HTML. So let's create a class called, let's say, info data. All right, and we can have a method here called private string message and public info data. And again, this is just an example of, I mean, basically example showing how to attach some object with the model and view, which Thymeleaf can basically use to create a dynamically generated page. And let's say whenever we are creating this object, we can say message equal to activity time colon, let's say, current date dot to string. Actually, let's use local date time, otherwise we won't see the changes. So now in our controller we can just do mav dot add object, let's say info and new info data. All right. And now this is just a way to attach a Java object to our model view. And how to embed this, essentially, if I just want to show this to you, so in our footer, all right, let's add some space, and this is the syntax. So basically, open up double square brackets, close double square brackets, and within it use dollar info dot get message. Slightly complex to understand, but again, once you understand this format, copy paste. Spring also gives you these sort of mechanisms. To be honest, I've forgotten what is the difference between, let us say, let us say this mechanism and this mechanism. Okay, so either we could have referred the info object uh, and just passed on the properties, or or we can use info.get message and then put it in opening double square and closing double square bracket. So I really don't know but the difference between the two, but maybe you can have a look at these things. You can Google it up and have a look at this. All right. So all right. So once we have this, all right, let's just start our Jetty, and let's see what happens. So I'm just going to refresh this, and you see my time keeps updating. And if I go to features, I still get my time and so on and so forth. Okay, so in this tutorial, we have seen how to create or render a simple HTML page. Then we moved on how to configure uh, Thymeleaf in Spring. Then we saw like three benefits of Thymeleaf. Essentially use fragments or code snippets and reuse them across HTML files. Um, solve the problem of paths, and then basically dynamic HTML generation, right? I could have used any object over here, passed it with a name, and then do whatever I wanted to do with that object. So for example, Thymeleaf allows you to loop over, let's say, lists, create dynamically generated content, etc., etc. So that's about Thymeleaf. I will just clean up all of this code a little bit and check it in. And next tutorial, we can look at uh, connecting with databases. Again, it's a little bit of configuration involved over there, right? Just we configured controller, etc. But once we set it up, it all works beautifully, and hopefully we'll see a full end-to-end application using Spring.